Hi there, Dave here from Ripple Rock to do another installment of mental skills development, how to use the mind in order to get higher levels of performance and higher levels of enjoyment out of sport. And today we're just looking at how to utilize the workbook in order to get better training and better competition results. So the workbook has got 12 foundational models in it, and where we start usually is with the notion of goal setting. And so there's a chapter in the workbook on goal setting, and goal setting really just looks at the three aspects of it, sort of the why I would bother, the what do I need to be doing, and the who do I need to be. The why is really what we call the outcomes. Why would I bother? I want to have higher levels of performance. I'd love to have a personal best. It's just fun to go and to compete. It's just fun to go and train. It's great to be with other people. Any sense of accomplishment that might come out of it. Those are the reasons why. And why we bother really produces what we call the motivation and drive that's necessary in order to get higher levels of performance and enjoyment out of sport, and particularly training and competition. The middle column, what do I need to be doing? Those are my performance indicators. So in our example here, as a paddler, rotation, extension, top hand drive, catch, pull, lots of power on the pull, and a good recovery. Those are sort of technical and strategic aspects of the sport. And then the final column is the who do I need to be? And those are my process attributes, we call them. So those would be things like the big 8, which we'll talk about in a minute, or any individual characteristics that you need to have in order to be good at your sport. So it might be the notion of you need to be very focused. It might be with your sport that you need to put in tremendous amounts of effort. It might be that you need to be super accurate, or your sport may require a tremendous amount of patience. So that would be who do I need to be, what do I need to do, and why would I bother? So when we talk about the big 8, which is another chapter in the book, we really look at 8 very simplistic sort of characteristics, all of which you're capable of doing now, and all of which take a lifetime to master. So that's just simply calm in the mind, relaxed in the body, grounded. I love my definition for grounded. I like myself. I like what I do. Most importantly, I think I like how I do it. That's a pretty grounded athlete. Likes himself, likes what he does, likes how he does it. It's not about anybody else. It's just about me. Centered is my ability to change my mind. And so if I'm not grounded, if I'm not relaxed, if I'm not calm, I need to get busy. And centered is my ability to change my mind. It's my ability to change my plan. Positive is important because the brain works way better. The conscious, subconscious mind works better when it's positive. Patience, because it allows me to hang on to those 5 things above it. And then effort and focus. And effort and focus, of course, they go into the speedometer. And the speedometer really describes activation. And activation is really the notion of, like, is my mind connected nicely to my body? So over here, I'm not activated enough. Over here, I'm way too activated. I've been careless. Not enough effort went into it. Too much effort is going into it. Thinking too much, trying too hard. And where we want to be is just in the middle there. And we notice that that's called carefree. And we focus only on what's essential in that place. And so that's the notion of activation, getting that speedometer just in the right place. So when we're training and when we're competing, it's good to remind ourselves, it's good to ask ourselves, where do you think we are on the speedometer? And chances are, you're probably a little bit too far. Not very many athletes I work with don't come motivated enough. Not very many athletes I get to work with aren't driven enough. Usually the problem is we're trying a bit too hard. We're thinking a little bit too much. And if we just trust ourselves a little bit more, if we just believe in the process a little bit more, if we just take some breaths and try to calm and relax ourselves a little bit more, we're likely to come back on the speedometer into that zone. And that is where we'll probably quite instantly see some really good results in terms of performance and enjoyment going up. One of the next models in the book is, of course, the bubble. When you talk to the thousands of people that I've worked with over the years and you say what model was most useful, usually people say the bubble model. And the bubble just separates out two worlds. It separates out this intrinsic world of me and who I want to be inside my bubble, and then all of the challenges that exist in the external world. And there's a tremendous number of them. And so me, I want to have that big 8, and here my example is my athletes being carefree. They're going to be a great teammate. They're going to stay very productive. They're going to be very determined. There might be some requirements of them, which, goes to that what and who lists of who they need to be. So they might need to be fast or quick or sharp or accurate, but they might also need to be very balanced, or they might need to be very curious, because every sport is a little bit different. Every athlete is a little bit different. So that's the notion of like setting ourselves up inside the bubble, deciding at the beginning of the day who we want to be. And now all of these things are going to come at us, and they're going to try to get into the bubble, and they're going to try to ruin that little party we want to be having in there. And your job is to keep the outside things out of the bubble and to continue to maintain the inside things in the bubble. That's really the notion of the bubble model. In the workbook, and if you've been to any of my talks, of course, we always talk about the nasty list or the negative emotion list. Frustrated, mad, angry, nervous, stressed, anxious, sad, doubt, worry, all of the great emotions in sport. And one of the chapters in the book is dedicated to this notion of how we don't borrow. So, of course, we've got the two boxes in life. You sit on top of this box with your self-esteem, right? Like your self-image inside it, right? The truth about you, ideally, and for some of us, we have the perfectionist disease. So we've got this one box. And then what we have is we have another box over here. And this box contains our results. They come from the past, the present, and will produce more in the future. If the two boxes align, in other words, if what I want to be true in this box is also true in this box, I don't have to borrow. And if my two boxes don't align, then of course I will be borrowing. So the example would be, I want to be the kind of athlete who progresses really quickly, who learns really quickly. Today, I'm not learning very quickly, and so my boxes don't align. And so what I do is I come over and I borrow a little bit of disappointment. And by borrowing the disappointment, it somehow satisfies the ego that just says it's okay not to be who you are. And so if you don't want to borrow, then we got to figure out a different way to describe myself. So I love working with athletes and saying, your job is to show up every day, to give it your best, to manage your mistakes well, to continue to learn, and to be looking for the high performance fun. Then no matter what happens, I know I can control that. I did show up. I did give it my best. I did manage my mistakes. I did learn some things. I did look and find some high performance fun. And therefore the likelihood of the boxes aligning goes up dramatically. When we look at the spectrum, I can be a bozo. I can also be amazing. There's perfect. I'm usually almost always ideal, right? Here's my outliers. So whether I get outliers, whether I'm ideal or whether I'm perfect, all I was working on was showing up, giving it my best, managing my mistakes, learning some things, looking for that high performance fun. So that controls box alignment. And that makes us very unlikely to have to borrow from the nasty list. Okay, lots of information in that on the book. In the workbook is also the notion of the control mechanism. So there's places in life where we have some control. There's a lot of places in sport and in life where we have no control. And it isn't really so much about where you spend your time. It's about how much energy you have in that place. And so what we want to be is putting all of our energy into the places where we have control. Rest, sleep, nutrition, hydration, good mental preparation, looking after our equipment, having a great attitude, maintaining the big eight. We have control over those things. So we put lots of energy there. And depending on what your sport is like, you may not have any control over the environment, referees, competitors, weather, field of play conditions. There's a tremendous number of things we have no control over. Schedule, run order, all those kinds of things. And so while you're still going to have to deal with lots of these things, the trick when it comes to control is not to have any energy there. So I'm going to go third, perfect. I'm going first, perfect. I'm going last, perfect. The schedule has me competing at 8 in the morning and 8 at night, perfect. Got no control over it, therefore no energy on it. Focusing my energy on the places where I have some control. If you're looking for little tips in terms of how to get your best performances, of course we go to the task at hand model. And the task at hand just suggests you want one day to unfold at a time. You want the day to unfold 1 hour at a time. And depending on what you're doing in your sport, you just want to look after the next thing. So whatever's next, I'll look after it. Once I've looked after it, I let it go. And I get ready for what's next. And then I let it go. And I get ready for what's next. And I let it go. And I get ready for what's next. We call that keeping the task at hand. And what I do when I let it go is I emotionally release from it. So whether that was good or bad, I just let it go and I get ready to do what's next. If I have energy on it, I didn't like what happened, I'm going to get triggered. And triggered takes me off my optimal performance line. I end up here, now I have to claw my way back, probably don't do a very good job of a bunch of things here in the meantime. It could get worse, I get hooked, I get flooded, likelihood of return becomes even more doubtful, certainly quick return becomes very doubtful. So the trick is, how do you make a mistake and then just get on to what's next? I made a mistake, let it go, move on to what's next. Made another mistake, let it go, move on to what's next. That's the beauty of the task at hand. Coach Henderson, grade 11 and 12 football coach, used to always say, I don't care what you've done, good or bad. All I really care about is what you're about to do next. Make a plan, move on. As a bunch of knucklehead football players, when I was in grade 11 and grade 12, we all thought we got it. Oh yeah, coach, we get it. But I was still working on that notion of really, it's just one thing at a time. Dave, you gotta let it go. You drop the ball in the end zone, bummer. Get over it. Get ready for the next play. That's what he was trying to teach us. And honestly, when I played football in grade 11, grade 12, I never got it. I got mad, I got frustrated, I got disappointed, I got upset, and I also got really high on myself, right? Like I'd catch one in the end zone and just think, oh man, you're so amazing. That's so great, right? Either way, not really ready for what's next. It's very simple. Do what you need to do, let it go, move on to what's next. Okay, a couple last things here. Just the notion of athlete A, athlete B. So we're talking about girl A, girl B here, but for boys, athlete A, boy B. Really, two different athletes. The thing to remember is that athlete B progresses slowly. Athlete A progresses very quickly. The biggest difference is their willingness to make themselves uncomfortable. So girl B wants to be safe, comfortable. She wants things to be very predictable. Okay, she likes to be happy. She likes to be enjoying herself. She wants it to be easier. Athlete A isn't like that. Athlete A actually knows that if that athlete is not being uncomfortable, they're not doing it right. That willingness to make myself uncomfortable is really what produces the big results. And of course, along the way, we're going to be going hard at it, so we're going to make more mistakes. So that athlete's got to be really good at letting them go. It's going to feel challenging. It's going to feel a little bit risky. It's going to be difficult. It's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. So we got to figure out how to leave our athlete B's at home and just bring athlete A to training and just bring athlete A to competition. That's the trick. Lots in the workbook on it. Also in the workbook, a fun little story about a shortstop I got to work with years ago on focus, refocus, control. And it's just the notion of like, when I come in to do the work, I need to get focused. But that's kind of like game day focus. And this is kind of task at hand focused. So I'm going to get nice and focused. I'm going to get good mind-body connection. And then I'm going to begin to do the work. Then I got to get that laser sharp focus. And then I relax. Okay, and then I got to get it again, and then I got to relax. And then I got to get it again, and then I got to relax. So I'm not going to be able to maintain this super sharp level of focus for hours and hours and on end. So I've got to get good at letting go and then recapturing it. Let it go, recapture it. If we come back down too low, the likelihood of recapturing it becomes slimmer. And so this is the game day focus. This is the task at hand focus. And then let go at the end of the day, move on, and enjoy life. So the last little piece, which is also in the workbook, is just the notion of using lifelines, just resetting myself if necessary. If I do a good job of refreshing myself, just like let it go, move on, let it go, move on. You're doing great, awesome work, keep it positive, good self-talk, and just keep moving forward one thing at a time, refreshing after every little thing. Then we probably won't get into trouble. If something happens and we get into a little bit of trouble, then we're going to have to reset ourselves. Okay, and that takes a little bit more time. So I'm going to have to pause, take a good breath. I'm going to have to figure out kind of what the problem is. And then I'm going to have to give myself some good self-talk in order to get back to where I need to be. So that's more of a reset. And then if things have really gone bad, then I'm going to need to reboot. Like between sets or after this little piece is over. Okay, and that's a matter of trying to get back to the big 8 again. And rebooting is sort of like turning the computer off and turning it back on and starting all over again. Refreshing is just on the move, resetting when necessary. What's a requirement is knowing when it's good and I just get to move forward versus when it wasn't so good and I need to do something about it. Because that failure to do something about it is what causes the need for reboot. So refreshing all the time, staying aware of the need for reset, trying to avoid the reboot, but knowing that no matter what happens to me, there's always something to do. Reset myself or reboot myself. And after every little thing I do, always just that little notion of refresh. Or in order to keep things simple, just always remember that your skills never abandon you. What happens is you abandon your skills. The crazy part of it is your skills are always inside of you. And they're always ready to go to work. And you just got to get the mind to connect the body to them. And then away you go. So like I say, if the workbook is there and you haven't had a good read through it, 12 simple models that are going to make training in competitive settings probably higher levels of performance, certainly higher levels of enjoyment. And that's what we're after. The more fun we have, the more likely we are to do well. And that's really the trick. So that's just a couple really simple little things in terms of reminders and to really encourage you to dig into that workbook, do some of the assignments, and really begin to build those 12 foundational skills that are necessary. And all the rest of the work that I do, the dozens and dozens of little podcasts that I have, they are all aligned with the notion of those 12 foundational models. So hope things are going well for you right now, and they continue to go well for you in the future. And we'll look forward to catching up to you again. Take care.